Hi. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Jose. I'm doing it this way, not intentionally, but I was just doing kind of a mental assessment, if you will. Um, on I was kind of curious, but at the same time, wondering if I could figure it out astrologically, micro-astrologically through asteroids, etc., etc., etc. And that's what I do. So, let's see what the charts say when it comes to the education system right now that's happening right now around the world. This is going to be more general. There are no houses included in here for those who know astrology a little bit because this is worldwide. But let's see what I get. I just did an interview and it was AI. And you could tell this is kind of a personal bias of mine, but you could tell, I could feel that it wasn't, as Bashar puts it, my highest excitement. I still did it though, but I just like, ugh, why am I doing the interview? And I just thought I wasn't even planning on doing an interview rather, because I asked them about a profile, like the business position that I was applying for. And they're like saying, is this position? But they didn't say that it was more like so that they can look for jobs for me. I was just like, no, I thought I'm applying for a direct position. I was like, okay, so I felt there was a trigger of like, is there a lack of transparency there in the little details or that kind of stuff? And I'm wondering about the whole, like, I just got, after seeing this message like, with Gabrielle Bernstein, if you know Gabrielle Bernstein, she posted this thing about how there's no late, there's no, everything happens on, it's timing, right? But many of the old systems, of course, are holding on really tight, to these old structures. And it's not AI. It's not even that. It's just they're teaching AI to rush things. So what's happening is there's, TS1 got this already before. We cannot be teaching AI these things that are of the old, I wouldn't say old, but things that are very unconscious behavior, fear-based beliefs. AI will pick that up from us and be like, if we're stressed, it's going to pick up the stress. If we're rushing things, and I mean, I did it through the interview myself. I'm just like, uh, am I teaching AI this? My own reaction to this thing. So, I don't want to claim anything. I'm just saying because of how I felt the whole thing, people might ask, like, well, why did you take the interview? I was like, well, I did it anyways because I made a promise to myself that I would still not pursue, I would still go ahead with it because I made that commitment. Committed to myself just because because it's already part of the application process. So, if that makes sense. I know I'm jumping the gun sometimes. You may not. Anyways, if you're curious, you can ask me on the side, whatever it was, doesn't matter. Point is, I'm using my experience to see what's going on in the world and seeing if there's anything that you can say is going on. Like, as in, I don't want to say that it's predictive, but it's not because I'm looking in today's thing. It's February 18th, Wednesday, here where I am. And I want to see what the charts are saying. Simple as that. So, anyways, I know I kind of just share that, but that's part of the process too. The reason I'm doing this too is so that to show you that this is what I do. I don't, there are things that I filter, but at the same time, there are things that I don't need to filter, like this one. Because if it helps you, if you're one of those people like myself looking for work, um, meaning work as in, because we still live in a third dimension. We still live here, so we have to work with it, right? Meaning have to, as in like finding the gift behind it. So that's also why I decided to do the interview. But it's just if that makes sense, you know what I mean? So it's not just like I'm going to be resisting. Whatever we resist persists, right? So I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to go with this one. Just to put it lightly, that's what I was getting at. This isn't about any of that stuff I'm just mentioning, just about the chart. Okay, so I realize I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at the temperature. It's like, oh, okay, so minus 25 degrees here, Celsius. It's really cold, so bear with me. All right, let's see what the charts say. Hmm, 18. Yeah. All right. Let's see what it's. Oh, the moment I change that, it's a good thing I copy and pasted that whole thing. Let's see. Let's use TrueNote. Good thing I remember what it was. I think I remember Penelope being there. Pholus is Chiron, Pholus and Mbaba. Mbaba Mwana Moresa, by the way, is not an asteroid. She's a dwarf planet, so she's way out there. Orpheus is also here. Ah, yes, and Osiris. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, let's take a look. That totally makes sense. There's a shift happening here. That's happening probably more under the radar or kind of seemingly under. I'm hearing undercurrents, or it's retrograde. It's happening in small communities, small areas of the world, small pockets, collectives, more quietly. But there's a focus on the shift as well, on re-education, because Mbaba, she's basically also about that. Um, she's balance between what you call boundary and bounty. Okay? Um, so she is also about the educational systems themselves. So there's a shift through that. That totally makes sense. And there's square to Mars right here. So that signifies that there's challenges that humans face in terms of what action to take when it comes to systems being revamped or changed, all that stuff. But it's happening in this sort of a devious, sort of insidious ways. It's this whole, when you have Aquarius and or Scorpio here, challenges is which comes to change, because Aquarius likes change, Scorpio doesn't. So it's that whole energy of water and air. Um, there's probably like methods that's being taken to an extreme, and Scorpio is just like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, what aren't you looking at? Right. So Scorpio wants to kind of do that. But Scorpio here, or Baba, is trine retrograde Jupiter. So here there's a sort of happening with systems that are leaderships, sort of things that are systems themselves that are already in place, that are more about expansion and growth, that are more about when it's tied to specific like businesses, that totally makes sense. But for the sake of security, usually it's Cancer here. We have a grand trine here, grand water trine to the moon right now, actually to Mercury rather not moon. The moon will be transiting quite quickly here, so the moon will be, but the moon here rules Cancer, so there's a flow in terms of our spirituality, spiritual acceptance, and how we communicate more spiritual level. Um, Religious communities are included here as well, spiritual communities, um, places like when it comes to things that we kind of swept under the rug, the subconscious, things that are hidden, clandestine activities, that kind of stuff is very 12th house related stuff. Pisces isn't really like that, but it's kind of sort of the same feel. Um, but when it comes to communication, it also means like any sort of transmission of information that includes, oh, this includes roads, possibly highways being built in the oceans and waters, harbors, maybe because the moon is here. But that's also with Cancer. So she rules harbors, places where there's bodies of water. So everything is about water. Water systems are changing. So that means, yeah, it's a global warming thing, as I mentioned in the previous video. Uh, let's see here. Penelope is like stubbornness. So that explains a trine to her. But Penelope here is this stubbornness retrograde here. That means certain governments, pockets of government, certain leaders are kind of like, I don't want to change. So that's naturally happening. But Saturn here is showing, is it retrograde? No. Saturn's showing here that there's a needs for a new system. But um, there are certain things, even though it is trine, it usually means that there's, in this case, would mean that there are certain resistance to it, especially those in the leadership, people who are in authoritative roles, this kind of stuff. Osiris here is showing that there's a change naturally on re-education, like literally like shifting, like as in not just shifting, but like replacing, right? So that ties in with the Uranus placement. But Osiris here is in Gemini, so that means yes, the education system as well, namely elementary education. Neighbors is also changing here, and the way we communicate is also part of this one. Osiris, sextile Penelope, when we put our efforts into working with leaders or authority figures, that shift can happen, at least right now, on a more microscopic, microcosmic level, if that makes, like on a small level. But Osiris and Uranus are trying to Pluto. That means it's naturally shifting on its own. It'll be here for a while. So let's see what else. But Penelope is also square Pluto here. So that means that there's a certain stubbornness to it. But that also means that they're loyal to that. Penelope is mostly about loyalty. Kind of testing the waters. She's about testing the waters, looking to see where, again, loyalties lie. Loyalty, fealty, that kind of stuff. Pholos here is usually tied to education, but it's more about learning from your mistakes. So we're learning from our past mistakes. Pholos is here trying south nodes, so that means we're naturally learning from our past. But if we work on it, we can learn from our present as well, where we're headed, and sort of see what consequences might come about when we don't learn from the past. Okay, it'll happen naturally. But again, you have here the North Node conjunct Venus. So if it's, well, sometimes there might be a tendency to escape towards pleasurable things instead of learning from that. But it's not necessarily a bad thing when we look into things that are good for us, that are pleasurable. It doesn't have to necessarily be what used to be called pleasurable. In this case, more like higher elevated. It's in Pisces, so that means more unconditional approach, more spiritual, more, again, unconditional. That's as far as I can make it. Sorry, I'm also feeling the residual effects of the interview. I'm just really like, you know what? I'm just gonna drop that one. There's a lot of things in the old system that are just no longer working with me, and bleh, I'm like mentally vomiting, you know. Orpheus and Spartacus are conjunct to each other, so that means that there's a lot of emotional expression in Sagittarius to really go for things that inspire us, but no longer want to, you know, go into old beliefs. So there's a shift. Spartacus is all about rebellion, naturally, and Orpheus is about um, an expression of yourself, being able to touch others with your music. In this case, your music, your artistry, your magic, right? And working through the pains and woundings of freedom. This is societally speaking. Chiron is actually here. What is that? So that's good quadrate. So that's like a square. So there are certain little challenges that humanity might experience through this pain. Um, the struggle of wounding of freedom, especially specifically like changes that need to happen, or does it even need to happen, right? I wanted to include the dwarves here, but that would go for a longer reading. Um, I just want to look at the general feel right now of what's changing. It is shifting. Things are shifting, albeit sometimes for some of us, kind of like, when is it going to really change? But that's really up to us on an individual level, right? So right now I'm trying to follow my own, I'm going to stop it there. Trying to follow my own, whatever the highest excitement I have in any given moment, right? It's not really excitement per se, like, woo! It could be little things as well, right? It's not that. It's about being childlike. That's the key. Childlike, 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 childlike. And just having fun with it, letting go of anything. But it takes, easier said than done, right? For many of us, that's understandable. So that's as far as I'm going to go right now. I feel drained from the interview. And I was just kind of curious to see what was going on here. I don't know if that'll help you, if that helped you at all. Let me know. For those who are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Jose. That's in my channel name. You know what to do. You do have something to work with. If you are interested in it, by all means, go for it. If you're interested in asking a question, by all means, go for it. Um, yeah, you decide. But anyways, I hope it did help you. If you have any questions, let me know. You know what to do. See you later.